audio and visual podcast, a weekly discussion about all things guitar building and some random tangents as well, featuring members of the Guitar Builders Collective from all around the world. The Guitar Builders Collective is a like-minded group of individuals that have come together to share their experiences, knowledge and inspiration for guitar building. Each week you can join us in the live YouTube chat or catch up at a later point. It's also available as audio where you'll miss out on seeing our lovely faces and some of the visuals we share along the way. You can also find the Guitar Builders Collective via our forum, over on Instagram where we share images of members' builds. We've got a thriving Facebook group, and we do hope that no matter what your experience and knowledge is, you'll become a welcome member of this community too. Hello, welcome everyone. Fantastic.
Is it only 4 of us?
It's only 4 of us. Well, see, the problem is we normally do this every Thursday. So if anyone's watching or listening, new episodes every Thursday. But I'm trying this year to get a range of guests in, which means that sometimes people can't make it on a Thursday, like our guest today, who I'll introduce in a minute. So it's very possible that when we flip things around, the sort of regular hosts might not be able to make it, etc. But for those listening, you might have just heard that was Paul from Milehouse Studios, who was a guest back in September, who's come back on to join Scott from Bonehead Guitars and myself today, because in our chat, Paul, you mentioned a guitar builder that lived near you, who I was trying to remember just now if I'd actually at that time just started following him on Instagram, if it's because of your chat, but love his work. So we've got him on. It's James from Yarde Guitars.
Hello. Morning or afternoon now, isn't it? Yeah, well, depends where you are in the world.
It's morning for Scott. And I can see in the chat we've got Menno, who says good morning. Menno's in Ecuador. So
that's what prompted me to say good morning then. That's what it was.
Yeah. Fantastic. And we've got Owen also live in the chat at the moment, both former guests or regulars. He's over in Cork. Actually, James, where are you?
Saltash. So I've taken that border crossing from Paul in Plymouth, and I'm in the arid badlands of the southwest.
And is that where you were born and bred?
Yeah, so a little village, Tremerton, and then primary school was all down here, and then actually went to secondary school up in Suffolk near Ipswich. So I went up and down the country quite regularly, but then I went to uni down here. So yeah, pretty much spent most of my life in Saltash, Plymouth area.
Fantastic. And Paul, you're actually in Plymouth, is that right?
I am. If you, it's a little bit safer over my end. So definitely where he lives, it's a bit like meet my wife and sister, and it's one woman.
That's going to set the tone for today. Fantastic.
Yes.
So look, I don't know, as always, what we're going to talk about, but obviously we're going to find out a bit about James and how he got into guitar building and share some of his processes. I noticed from your Instagram, James, there's a lot of CNC going on, so I'm sure we'll be focused on that. And also, we're just chatting off air very briefly about how you and Paul made a connection, so I'm sure we'll go into that as well. Also, I can see there's a number of people chatting in the live stream, so what I'll do is I'll try and pull up any questions they have about it as well. But if it's all right, what I thought I might start us off with, James, is I'll just share your website on the screen so people have an idea of the sort of things that we're talking about and building. And for anyone listening at home, we'll try and describe what we're looking at as well. Obviously, if you're listening on audio, I have put links below for everyone's websites. I've got Paul's last time he was on, and Instagrams, etc. So you can go and check them out. So, how would you sum up your guitars, James? Am I right? You've got like 2 main models that you build.
2 main models that are displayed on the website, and I've got 2 more in the works with an announcement soon, but I can't talk too much about that because it's linked to a particular band / artist. So but I can say there is a 7-string actually in a local guitar shop called Sound Unlimited. That one just hasn't been uploaded to the website yet. But yeah, it's all headless is what I do, and that's really what I want to specialize in. You know, there's a million luthiers out there that can give you a Fender Stratocaster copy or their own twist on, you know, historical models that already exist. And I kind of want to change that and specialize in custom headless instruments. So depending on however many strings you want, or scale length, hardware, colors, specs, finish, that's where I really want to sort of put my USP in.
Yeah, I can see from the two that you've got, like as the main images on your website, that the one of them's a sort of standard scale and one of them's a multi-scale one. So that's...
Yeah, so actually the multi-scale came first. That was during lockdown, where I had already built a few guitars at that point. I wanted to start a new design for myself and kind of really push my sort of knowledge of what I knew and learn again something new. And so I got into multi-scale. And the battle was really trying to find what is a suitable scale length to even begin with. And some may argue that, you know, Fender cracked it in 1954, and why should we ever improve upon that? But, you know, there are pros and cons with everything, and everything's a compromise. So I feel, to the problem of guitar building and playing, I think I've come up with my best solution at this time.
So like, I know you mentioned the headless being the thing there, but the thing that also jumps out to me is the body shape. They've got that kind of ergonomic cutaway, like
Yeah.
some Scots have, that presumably make it easier for when you're sitting down and playing.
Yeah, so depending whether you're standing, sitting, or like, you know, if you want to play classically, the body shape gives you that option. And it took me actually a while to get the position of the belly cut in relation to where the bridge sits correct, because if you have it too far back, it pushes the guitar like too far forward, and so on and so forth. So there was many a CAD design iteration and quite a few versions. The one that you see there, the blue one, that was I say the last prototype. Nothing's ever finished, but that was like the Mark 7, so of a physical model. But it takes a long time, but everyone who plays them, or at least this one or any other of my guitars, they always say the same thing. They feel precise, and that's exactly the sort of caveat that I was going for.
Nice. Look, hey, before we get into your design process then, so the idea of iterations and CAD and all of that, maybe you could tell us a bit about how you first got into, not even guitar making, but into guitars themselves. Where does that come in your life?
I have to blame my sister for that, because it's now taken my career into a rocky road of trials and tribulations of being self-employed. And one of my earliest memories was really the music that I was listening to. And I'm not that old, but you'll remember Minidisc. Oh, yeah. No, that's FedEx. I'm really sorry. I do have to grab.
Oh, that's all right. This happened before for other people. Go get that. James warned us off screen beforehand that he's having a delivery of luminlay inlay side dots that he needs for a build, and you can't miss the delivery of that.
I warned him not to reveal the level of arrogance that he has, but he's done it anyway. He didn't listen. Never does. Like my wife, never listens. It's never wrong either.
Speaking of deliveries, I got a treble bleed kit in the mail. He said he was going to send me some, so I've got one I need to play with, but I don't have anything to play with at the moment on it. But I'm kind of excited to put that into use, do some dinking around with it. Give him
so
some
was that one of Ben's ones?
Yep.
Wow.
He said he was going to send me one. I was like, cool, because I was thinking about, I just figured I'd order some anyway, but he said he'd send me one, so I'm anxious to play with it.
Yeah, nice. Always good to have something fun to do down there. Look, James, while you were gone, I won't go back to them yet, but I can see some questions or some observations about your guitars coming up about the hardware you're using. So people are obviously keen to talk about that, but I do want to carry on where you were about how you got into your guitar build, your guitar playing. Or oh no, you're on mute. Well, you're not on mute, but there's no sound. A classic lockdown Zoom call.
This reminds me of my speed awareness test back in lockdown. That was a Zoom catastrophe as well.
I hear they're very insightful, those courses.
I'll be completely honest with you. I've got one tomorrow.
Oh no. Okay.
Yes, I'll be sat in this same seat at the same time doing a speed awareness course. He's gone.
Yeah. Well, he might be reconnecting them. Hey, so Paul, while you're here,
Yep.
While James is sorting that out, what's happening with you? You were just talking about a new build you're working on for a new series.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So currently, can't hear him. It's ideal. It's lovely, isn't it? It's like peaceful.
Yeah. James, you might need to disconnect and reconnect, maybe.
James, can you give us one of them if you can hear us? That's not what I asked for, but okay, that's fine. It's far too civilized. Yeah, so I'm currently getting between 2 and 3 commission orders a month now, so it's gone absolutely crazy. And but I'm only the 2 I'm doing at the minute. I'm filming concurrently to try and get ahead of videos, but after that, I'll only probably put 1 out of every 3 on the channel because there's only so much I can upload.
That's brilliant. So does that mean your commissions are all coming in through your social media for people seeing your
Yes,
videos?
they are now. Yeah. So I've spent 20 years as a kitchen fitter and second fix carpentry in kitchens.
We
Yeah, we
can
can hear it.
Oh, brilliant. Sorry.
You're retiring from that. Anyway, back to James.
Oh, you are? Oh, that's great news. We'll come back to that great news then.
Oh, no, I'm interested in the great news. What was that, Paul?
No, it was about you, not to you. So carry on.
Fair enough. So really sorry about that. I think when I disconnected or put my headphones down, it just decided to not reconnect my headphones, but I could hear you. Anyway, so I have to blame my sister for my music taste because we went down to Red Roof down in the depths of Cornwall where it is still 100 years behind. And on the way, it's a boring trip. And I remember my sister gave me a mini disc of Nevermind. And of course, the intro for Smells Like Teen Spirit just absolutely, blew me away and all the rest of it. So she was kind of like this person who introduced me to new bands. And one of them was Red Hot Chili Peppers as like, the secondary to that. And Around the World with that guitar and John Frusciante is basically that guitar sound is what made me want to get into music and all the rest of it. And I remember I must have been like 8 or 9 and my mum said, right, I think you need to learn an instrument. And she gave me a choice because one of her friends was selling a drum kit and the other friend was selling a guitar. And it was kind of like that deciding factor of Pokemon, like which Pokemon do you choose? And I decided the guitar because only from the fact that my friend played drums, and I thought, well, we can't have 2 drummers in a band. All right. So that's the the story of how I got into guitar playing. And then making them, I had always learned sort of, holding the Hoover whilst my dad, drills holes into the wall and things like that, and slowly got involved with home projects and furniture making and all the rest of it. And as I mentioned previously, I went up to Ipswich for a school, and they had a really good design and technology program. And whatever idea you wanted, they really wanted you to go for it because, from the ages of 14 to 18, like that's really the time to try out, what you want. And so I trained in GCSEs, A levels as a furniture designer maker. But for my GCSE project, I made an electric guitar, and that was the first thing. So my first electric guitar was a copy of an SG.
Oh, I'm currently making a copy of an SG now. Well, and SG, why an SG though?
So I wanted to do a Les Paul, but I was recommended that the carved top was going to be difficult to replicate with the resources they had, and obviously their pin routers or CNC nails. And that wasn't really part of the curriculum for GCSEs. So we wanted something a bit flatter. And a friend of mine had an SG, and he was a left-handed guitar player. So I actually copied a left-handed SG and made it for a right hand. So the shape's ever so slightly skewed in the wrong way.
I love it, because the horns aren't quite equal, are they?
No, but this one's like even worse.
I wish I had a tally somehow, and I'm not going to go back through this is our 76th episode. I'm not going to go back through them all, but there's definitely a number of people that made guitars at school as a school project, and it stuck with them since then. And there's also quite a few people that got into guitar music through Nirvana. I know that was specifically what you said. You mentioned Nirvana, though. Yeah. Well, I think I didn't get into guitar from Nirvana, but the first proper sort of music I learned, not the stuff I was taught at school, was Nirvana. It was the first stuff I was jamming along with. I loved it. I think they made it super accessible.
I remember in the old days, I had for me, the pivotal album, I was always an acoustic lad, and Unplugged in New York was the best album in the world for me. And someone bought me the music book, the tab book, and it was, every song was just chords, but it had, instead of an E, it was E5, which is just a bloody bar chord. But for years, I didn't know what E5 was. There was no internet because we're old. And that book stumped me for absolute years. And now I look back at it and I'm like, Christ, it's like stickle bricks. It's like a piece of piss, isn't it? But excuse me.
Yeah.
Bad French.
I do wonder what life would have been like for me learning guitar with the internet around. I vividly remember being at my grandparents' house with the music book for Live at New York, playing along on my guitar.
Cherry Hill tab books. That was all we had. And Guitar Magazine.
How old are you, Scott?
52.
Oh, see, you're a decade before me. Wow.
I'm old. Yeah.
You look really good. Better than Daniel.
I haven't shaved. I'm deliberately not shaving for the podcast.
Yeah, but you're only 24, so you don't have to, do you?
No.
I really shouldn't have. I look ridiculous without a beard.
And me, mate. I look like the sort of guy that you don't want to trust around your kids if I haven't got a beard.
But you don't know what you're saying.
We have to bring it up now, James. Yeah, have you ever supported a beard?
No, this is the beard.
You've got a subtle beard at the bottom.
Wait till you see what's under his hat.
Some people can sneeze and grow more hair than this, but this is 2 months. It just doesn't grow. But yeah, I've shaved.
Envious of your hair, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's usually quite unruly, so I usually wear the promoting hat.
As always, the beard discussion's happening in the chat. Yeah, we've got to get off that now, or make that more of a thing. Maybe we should have some beard merch. One of the products I use a lot is one of the companies I use a lot is Axe Wax. They make products for guitars, like for polishing, but also waxes for like lemon oil and stuff like that. And they have the person that makes that. He has another company that makes beard products.
Same stuff.
I often wonder, is it literally the same stuff, but maybe a different sticker on it?
Oh, lemony beard.
It works well on the guitars. So look, we're going off topic. Which is something we seem to do a lot of, which is fine. So that was your school project, making guitars. But you told me before we started that Yarde Guitars has like officially been a thing for about 6 months. What was happening in between that?
So after I went to university in Plymouth because I wanted to be at home, and very quickly one of the comments was, "Do I still have that guitar?" Yes, I do. It's wasting away in a corner of a room somewhere. So I went to university in Plymouth and wanted to make guitars, and I was quickly told by 2 lecturers that no, you're not doing that. That's not design. There's no design work or anything really that you can learn from that. And I'm quite stubborn, and was probably an annoyance to them because I basically twisted every design brief that they wanted into a guitar. And then by the time I got to my second year, I did a Les Paul body out of bamboo and like a reverse. No, it wasn't a reverse, just a standard sort of Fender headstock neck. Because I really liked the Bonehead from Slow Train that Bonamassa did at the Beacon Theatre, and that shape kind of really hit hard. Although I think it's a Firebird for that, but I only had a Strat shape that I could copy. So yeah, I tried to learn as much as I could to try and make guitars in a more design way, as opposed to most people, I guess, go from guitar repair into making them. But I wanted to come from a very traditional sort of furniture aspect and go in that way. And yeah, I quickly learned computer aided design, specifically parametric like modeling, which basically means there's a timeline to what you do on the design. So if you go so far down the road and actually it needs tweaking, you can go back to a certain sketch or feature, edit that. So Fusion 360 is a great example of that. But I had a great technical team at the uni, which helped me learn that. So yeah, I learned CAD pretty quickly and thought, right, well, how do I adapt what I know for furniture into guitars? So behind the scenes, I was just, got a set of verniers and was just measuring parts and pieces, and then was slowly tinkering away. And of course, when I left uni, I was wanting to get into design or any sort of field relating to my degree, and there just wasn't any. So I actually sold motorbikes at a local BMW dealership for a good year and a bit. So it was a bit of like a left field strategy, but it was something to actually start paying the bills, so to speak. And I love motorbikes anyways, and guitars, rock music and bikes all come in hand. And then a couple of years on, I got into an actual manufacturing job in Crediton. So I was actually commuting from Saltash to Crediton every day, and it was a good hour and a half each way. So that wasn't the most pleasant of sort of jobs to keep commuting to. And when people say every event kind of has a reason, or there's my mum might not agree with this, but I was borrowing her Dacia Sandero, and on the way to work, traffic started braking on the A38, and I got rear-ended and pushed into the car in front. And because of that, I had to work remotely. So this would have been 2016, 2017, work at home doing CAD pieces for this furniture company. And one day, I didn't get any work. So I actually went into town and met up with one of the old technicians. And he said, "Oh, we've actually got a job opening for a technician's role in the workshop where I used to, learn as a student." So I applied and got the job. And so I was at the University of Plymouth as a senior technician in the wood workshop. And this actually was like a really big point in my life, because not only could I learn all the equipment inside and out, maintenance and upkeep, but also I could learn how to adapt the traditional to make guitars. And at the time, they always promoted, have your own interests, and as long as it's not within your work time, in between lunch or something, you can do a little bits and pieces, which is great.
Can I just ask at this point, so were you saying this like 2016, 17?
That was 2017, I think, yeah.
So I can't really, I've got no knowledge of this, but when I first started getting into watching guitar building on YouTube, CAD CNC and all of that was rare. You didn't see many people using it. Was that your experience at the time? That was no one else really doing it like that? I mean, maybe in big factories, but
I actually never watched YouTube at that point. It wasn't really a thing for me. I never knew what was out there on YouTube or what people was doing, and I think that was a bit narrow-sighted of me. But I guess because I had studied like books and read stuff, and but yeah, like for me, I never really referenced YouTube for any of my stuff, and I think that's kind of a caveat because in the woodwork world, sorry all the American fans out there, but when you video yourself doing any wood processes, put the guards down and a saw stop. Yeah, okay, it's like a last resort, but put a guard on those damn things or wear some safety specs. So for a long time, when we had students coming in and being like, oh, I saw this on YouTube, the immediate response was like, no, like it sounds dangerous already. If you've seen it on YouTube, it sounds dangerous. And I think I kind of probably had that smear my view on maybe guitar making and all that. But during my time at the University as a tech, I learned to use laser cutters, 3D printers, and CNCs. And I'll mention him. Ian Griffin was a tech at the time, so he taught me. And then I was working alongside him, and I kind of owe my knowledge of CNCs to him. And he still works at the university as a tech, and I see him quite often. But yeah, so so coming up towards like lockdown and all that, there was a new facility called the Digital Fabrication Lab that got funded, and they wanted technicians to move over, and I was seconded into that remit. So I had a 8x4 CNC flatbed with a beautiful aluminium vacuum.
Oh, hold on, we've lost.
Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, we're back. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Sorry, someone just tried to call me. Annoying. Yeah, I got all these 3D printers, CNCs of all different various sizes. And when lockdown hit, we implemented all the systems, and then we weren't allowed to use them or even be on site. When the university reopened, if you have any bit of kit, lack of use is sometimes more detrimental than overuse. And so I said to the management at the time, like, look, let me learn the kit a little bit more, and would you mind if I made guitars? And they said, okay, as long as it's not taking away from students or any of that, have at it. Like, you need to know the kit, and you haven't used it, because by the time I got trained and then was back after lockdown, it was quite a sizable amount of time. So that was my excuse. So yeah, 2020 and 2021, I was like, I think this is the way I want to go with my life, and design and make guitars. So I came up, if you look on my Instagram, way back, there's a red/purpley guitar, and that was the first sort of prototype of a multi-scale, and it was all a bit funky and skewed, but I did that on a flatbed CNC. So yeah, keep going. These are some. I did a strap by hand, and then yeah, that's the render for it. Yeah, so then there we are. That's the render there, the purple one. So that's just a computer generated image of what it was going to look like. And that was actually when I started the whole inlaid fretboard, and that has stuck. Then I got a commission.
If anyone's listening, there's links to James's Instagram below. But yeah, can you just describe that inlay fretboard for people?
Yeah, so imagine you get your normal maple neck with a skunk stripe on the back, but what you do is actually remove the skunk stripe, so it's a solid neck, but you want an alternative material for the fretboard, and so you do an offset from your fretboard edge, and you inlay the fretboard actually into the material. So actually directly underneath the strings, for this particular one was Purple Heart. but all around the outside, it was almost like a natural binding, which encompassed the neck material.
Here's a photo of the actual thing, or a video of the actual thing. Yeah, it just looks like a sort of thicker, very cool binding on it. But then it flows into the actual neck. It doesn't end on the sides.
It's a bit of a process to do, but I've kind of streamlined it now to work. And some people like it, some people might not like it, but the ones that do, they tend to be my sort of demographic that I'm aiming for. So yeah, 4 iterations of actually trying to just get it right.
I mean, I've got to say, for me, for a lot of guitar builders, when you look at their builds, it's the little sort of details that they have across their builds that are consistent, that make it kind of like their personal style or their signature. And obviously you're saying about being headless being one of your core things, and maybe that ergonomic shape, but it feels to me quite different to other necks I've seen. So it feels like it could be the signature as well.
I went down this route of wanting to do it because I thought it's kind of like the marquetry side of it, and I did quite a lot of inlay work with the laser cutters, and I wanted to kind of encompass that into my guitars. I will admit, I only found out after I went down this road that Fender did do this, I think, with they did rosewood necks and then inlaid maple or American black walnut. It was one of the two, but Fender did try it, but for some reason they stopped it after half a year or so. So there are some out there from them, but yeah. And then recently I've kind of taken it a bit further. So if you were to scroll up to like my most recent posts, there's a new shape that I'm kind of working on. So it's a bit more of a traditional double horn, a bit cleaner. Yeah, so the one on the right hand side, that one, yeah. So, not that one, sorry. The one, yeah, that's it. But if you go to the one It Machined Beautifully, it's just, I think, on the left hand side of the feed, down. Nope, down one.
I should leave you to control it.
There we go. So that shows the flame maple off a bit more. So this one's a new model coming out. So again, it has the inlaid fretboard, but this cap is inlaid as well. So it's a center join flame maple that I've actually cut down into the body by 20 mil, and then that's been clamped and pressed in, and then I've machined it through. So it's again like a natural binded edge all the way round. But when you get that sort of thing, you can get some funky sort of results because the top of the body is actually arched.
Right, it definitely feels like a lot of the design elements in yours are only possible because of the use of CNC. So it's right,
yes,
really an advantage of the process that you're using to not just make a traditional looking guitar, but to do something that would be really hard, if not impossible, otherwise. Yeah,
that's that I've been fortunate to get the CNC that I have. And a lot of people will probably just want to knock out Fender copies and all the rest of it, and that's fine. But I've with my sort of experience and training and everything, I want to kind of really push the limits of guitar making, at least for what I can do, and show off a bit more detail and sort of the effort that goes in, not just by the hands or the machine, but also the sort of foresight into like, how can I utilize all these technologies properly to come up with an instrument that not only could you that you could struggle to replicate by hand, but if I want to do it really precise and make a better instrument that's going to last a long time, then yeah, that's the CNC element.
Yeah, I think for me, what's interesting is looking at a design or a guitar like yours and being able to see that, yes, it's made by CNC, but you can see that there's so much design that's gone into it to make it possible for that CNC, as opposed to just it doing a standard shape. And that kind of look of seeing the wood and the grains complementing each other really adds to that. And I think in the back of my mind, I always used to think, well, CNC is just for stock stuff that you can spray afterwards. It's not for that kind of bespoke thing that you get from a handmade guitar, where you really have the real choice of woods being really important, and you can see the carpentry that's involved. But here you can see that design element is totally integral to the look of the guitar.
Thank you.
Clearly, whoever told you a guitar project wasn't, good for design purposes, didn't have much imagination.
They were a ceramicist. Yeah, and they were my lecturer.
Well, so lecturers obviously vary. I just want to plug ourselves for a minute. We've got coming up next month. We've got Andrew Knight, he's got Nitro Guitars that he does on the side, but he also works for Jackson Guitars as a chief designer. He was a student of Mike from Ingold Audio when Mike was a lecturer in design at an art university, and they're coming on to have a special where we're talking about the design process and all the kind of methodology around design and things that can inspire us. And you may not know this yet, James, but I'm going to be chatting to you afterwards. We've been doing a series on 3D printing. We've got one next week, in fact, on that. And what's come out of that is we definitely want to have an episode where we're really honing down on what CAD is and how people use CAD. So basically an episode for people that already know how to use CAD but want to go in depth into it. You seem like the man to get on for that, it sounds like.
Yeah, I can definitely throw my 2 pence in. So yeah, once you've designed your own guitar and you've got all the CAD files there, then you can design all the tooling for that. So previously to going self-employed, I worked at Manson Guitar Works, and the 2 years I was there, I streamlined their production from they just got the CNC and were actually outsourcing the design and cam work to someone it's a small world down in Cornwall, to someone that I did an internship at the same company for. He's called Luke White, and he's doing pretty well for himself. But yeah, so he was actually the previous sort of, I'd say, freelance designer for Manson's, and then I've come along and do the design work and the cam work, and also stock processing. And there was a couple of colleagues that, if you're doing solid bodies with no caps, and you don't have the opportunity to lay in sort of cavities for your electronic routes underneath the cap and make it hidden, you've got to use a ridiculously long drill bit to try and marry up those 2 pockets between, the pickup and electronics. So they were kind of blindly lining it up. And I was just like, we could probably just 3D print the positive of, let's say, the pickup cavity, and just have a hole just like hits it every time.
I saw Jack from JC Guitars, who's coming on next week with the 3D printing. Hopefully, partly that'll be one of the things he talks about. I saw him use one of them, and it was like, my mind was blown. Of course, that's such a simple thing, but I just hadn't really thought about doing that because I didn't have access to that technology. I wasn't aware, like I presume the people there at Manson weren't, of how easy it is to create things like that make the actual hand making.
Yeah, and whether you're doing one, there's no second guessing, because it's all done on CAD, and all the cavities have been CNC'd. As long as you've toolpathed it correctly and the CNC's done the right job, then you can be 100% certain that you could close your eyes and just plunge through. Some people love it because it's precision, and that's kind of my ethos. Is like, well, the reason why it goes through there is because XYZ. But then other people don't like it. So yeah, there are some videos on my Instagram of some of these jigs. If you wanted to go through those, but some did really well on the Instagram, and then some you get comments being like, oh, you could have just used the pillar drill, and it's like, cool, okay. And with and with that, Paul and I were discussing recently about a comment about something slightly differently, and Paul had a good rebuttal or response to that, and that's like, okay, well, you can show me how you do it on your channel.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, Paul, I was going to ask you, as someone that obviously comes from, I assume, a background where you, in your former job before being a guitar maker, a luthier, presumably everything you did was hand tools and power tools.
Yeah.
Have you had really much connection with CAD, and any thoughts on that?
No, it blows my mind every time I speak to James, to be honest. He uses me for my workshop for doing grunt work, because it's like Mr. Spock comes in as a chat with Captain Caveman when he turns up. It's beautiful, really. But I try and pick his brains for CNC, but as much as I pick, not a lot goes in. It's like trying to educate my teenage son. It just bounces off the skull, and nothing goes in. But I will keep trying with James and my son.
I do feel, seeing all of these technologies doesn't mean they have to be integrated into what we're doing if we're not using them. But the more and more I learn about them, the more interested I am in them, and the more distracted I get from actually doing the guitar making that I should be doing for my job. But it's getting that balance right. And obviously, James, you've been in that situation where you've pigeonholed guitar building into your whole learning of all of this, it sounds like, from leaving school. It's incredible.
Yeah, pretty much. And yeah, like you say, there's a time and place. If it was simple, then yeah, just use your more traditional processes to get the job done. But when you've got a complicated job or a simple job that you just cannot afford to get wrong, well, why not reassure yourself that you've got it lined up perfectly with a jig? And that's literally how everyone does it. You can watch all the YouTube videos of factory tours, and it's all jigged. There's a lovely machined Delrin or with like brass bushings, so there's less wear on the jobs. But when you're on a little bit of an adjustment, and over a period of 3 months the guitar might change ever so slightly, then 3D printing is just really useful to knock out something within an hour and get the result needed, let's say for a batch of 10. And I really like making tools for my work. And you go on StuMac, and good luck if you ever want to work on a multi-scale, because there's no notched rules for that. And I've actually, because I do 26.5 to 25.5 for the Tamer, at least for like my normal multi-scale range, I've made a notched rule for 26-inch because it sits right in the middle. And I will need to do another one actually for a 7-string, because the what do you call it? The scale length is 28 to 27-inch, and this is for a custom build that we're doing, because this particular person likes to tune a 7-string like an 8-string, but then drops the bottom E out, so he's pretty low and heavy tuning.
Right.
But yeah, if it's bespoke and suitable, then yeah, I'll make a jig. Even bevel fret ends. I hate the little nylon block that StuMac provides, and it's square, but you're working to frets, and everything's radius. So I made a sanding block that's radius to 12-inch, and it's got an angle that I can determine based on my CAD. And I can also change, I just use Axminster files, and I can go from rough, medium to smooth and chomp through the stainless steel frets.
It makes me feel sick listening to this.
And this is actually where me and Paul, I think I love it chatting to Paul, because, for example, he had a video where I think it was for your Christcaster, the Jesus.
Oh, thank fuck for that.
Yeah, sorry, someone's trying to keep calling me. There was an episode. There was an episode where you had a knot come through, and it was showing on the edge.
Yeah.
And your reaction was, "Oh well." For me, that's like, "Oh no, that guitar's written off. I can't use that." But I think that kind of comes from the chippy mentality of we got to get this done and finished.
Character.
And character. It's got a live edge.
Individual.
Yeah, but there's that persona or character of yours that's shown in your guitars, and it's very chalk and cheese when Paul and I discuss our processes. So Paul was using self-tapping wood screws for mounting, like direct mounting pickups, whereas I had gone down the route of using machined inserts and using like low cap hex screws, so that everything lined up perfectly and everything was mounted perfectly.
Which I have
and it's not to yeah. So Paul's seen the light and started ordering.
I'm sure Paul could use his wood screws to get them perfect, but it does sound like, even just looking at your guitars, because of the way they're made, you can see there's that design element which makes you think that everything is going to be precision like that. That idea that you are going to have everything with inserts and not screwed directly into the wood seems to go hand in hand with the look.
It's the same with the string holder. So that is made by a friend of mine who's a tool maker in South Brent. Him and his dad have the Brody job shop, and I could go to a larger manufacturer and have that string holder, which I call the headlock, because it's kind of an emphasis that it doesn't have a headstock, but it locks the strings. That thing at the top, and that uses 2 N5 dog point grub screws to lock the string in place, because I wanted to make sure that it was going to be absolutely, in place. That's mounted into the top of it by inserts and machine screws, because I just don't, people work on guitars, and over time you don't want to be filling the hole where the screw goes with toothpicks and trying to make do. I want to build things that people can look at and be like, oh, there's care and attention to every aspect of these instruments. And it will give confidence to these people that are wanting to buy one of my guitars. But yeah, I have that local tool maker make those, and then I get them locally chrome plated or gold plated to each one, because every person that wants to buy one of these guitars, there's 2 in a shop, but I don't want them to be the ones that you buy necessarily, because it's almost like the toothpicks add tone. I want people to look at these guitars as examples, as like, demos, and then they go, okay, well, actually I want it in this color, this hardware. Can we voice the pickups in a certain way? Yes, yeah, sure. This is what I want to be known for, is that full custom aspect to headless instruments.
So what do you do for hardware? Because I love headless, I love multi-scale, but it seems like, especially with headless hardware, it's hard. There's no real standard. Most of what I can get my hands on is either exceptionally expensive or absolute Chinese garbage.
So I've been previously using Hipshot, and on the prototypes I looked around for a long time, and I found a place in Turkey, of all places, called Tan Bridges, and they made sort of more Strandberg-esque style tuners, but there's a compromise to that, and I never liked it, and that's because the string is right over the screw that holds the body for intonation. And if you need to adjust the saddle height, well, you need to take the string off. But Hipshot, they've got the Solo Mark IIs, which I now use on that blue one shown there, and it's a more traditional style of saddle, and all of the Hipshot stuff is brass. It's not aluminium or anything like that. It's really high precision. There's a weight to it, but they've got like this collaboration with Kiesel, and if you've ever seen a Kiesel headless, they don't have any sort of natural shape towards nut or slash first fret. There's no headstock sort of feel or transition, so to speak. Mine do have that, but it meant that I can't use their standard headless hardware. And I found the sort of cheaper alternatives to locking the string down were either too expensive or too small and weak to even hold the string, and they would usually use like one M5 screw. And I found issues with this, and they're made from aluminium, and it's like it's just too soft of a metal. I wasn't ever comfortable with how they are, whereas like because I've set my scale length and everything, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to make a steel block that's going to hold every string in place using the best, hardware I can find, but also is compensated to the nut angle as well. So I use, because you can move the saddles where you want because they're individually machined. I wanted something that complements it at the headstock end. So yeah, there is no standardization for any of this hardware yet. Fender kind of won that battle with most of the stuff, 70 years ago, and we're still going on with that. And I don't like, Fender have done that, and they've made the recipe for it. So why not do something different? And if I can't find the perfect solution, where it's like, well, I'm going to work with tool makers and engineers to find a better solution within a suitable cost. I don't know if that answers it, but yeah.
No, I have wondered what the Strandberg story is, because I mean they've obviously created their own hardware and seem to have done a good job with it. I love the style. I love headless. It bothers me how many people knee jerk don't like headless for some weird reason, or the body style, because they're both genius. But I was doing some thinking around with that before I really discovered Strandberg, but I've kind of been in the funk for the last 7-8 months, because I got me a Strandberg and I absolutely love it, and I love it a little bit more than everything else I have built. But it's a little depressing that I'm not at that level, but at the same time you've got a target to shoot for. But I do wish I knew the story about Strandberg's hardware.
So they use that, I call them cigarette tuners, because the actual tuning part looks like a filter of a cigarette. Yeah. I'm not a fan, and if you go to any guitar tech or repair shop, intonating them is such a pain, because to move it forwards or backwards for intonation, it's the whole body, and you've got to unwind the string, detune it just to gain access. And same with the heights. The hip shot stuff, I wouldn't put any subpar product on my guitars, and I've gone through the rounds of trying to find the best that works for my design and my workflow, and I settled on the hip shot stuff quite early on, which is nice. The Strandberg story is quite inspiring for me, in that they've made a massive not empire, but business from a headless, especially when the general consensus is that, well, it doesn't have a headstock. Eric Clapton didn't play a headless. Why do I need a headless? But
Eddie Van Halen did. What about Vito Bratta? You see, all right. So I turned 13 in 1984. So I had just hit I had just come of age about the time that hairband and everything came along. But I mean, back then I remember Steinberger, Vito Bratta was playing one, Eddie Van Halen was playing one, and when I saw those, I thought that's the coolest thing ever, because it's not. I grew up loving the Les Paul and the Strat, but iconic shape, iconic sound, but something different was just cool. I don't. There's so many people that are just adverse to a headless, and I don't get it. I really don't understand.
I think it stems from what do you call it? Promotions and collaborations with the artists. Ultimately, the reason why people play a Strat is because their favorite musicians played those, and there are far more that play headless. Normal traditional Les Paul Strats than the headless. And I think people are coming the way of headless because they're lighter, they're more compact, and all the naysayers, at least that have been vocal to me, that have played one of mine, they've gone, oh, actually, okay, I understand now.
Yeah.
So until proven otherwise, they'll stay in their corner, promoting that, fuddy duddy. And you could, Bonamassa was saying, what industry do you have a company making the same instrument or same product with very little iterations or changes 70 years on? Like, you don't get that with cars because we're not being force-fed the Model T.
Well, what gets me, it seems like bassists are not anywhere near as hung up on it as guitar players. What sense does that make? They just seem to be a lot more open to, to different.
Or maybe bassists, as famous as there are, it was always the lead guitarist that stood out, and maybe that was more prevalent, and the bassists were more in the shadows back then, and less so now. But yeah, they've got some crazy. I've always spoken to bassists, and they said, if they need to go valve or solid state, then it doesn't. They're not like, oh, I need to stay valve or anything like that. And passive, active, bleeds, and all the rest of it. They are more willing for a funky shape. And when I first saw a Warwick bass for the first time, I was like, whoa, that's mental. Because of the horn shape and the headstock, and I don't think you would find a Fender Stratocaster with a drop D flick tuner on the top, but most bassists prefer that.
I think one of the issues with headless as well is, like Paul at the moment's doing these breakdowns of cheap guitars. If you get a cheap Strat, you can make it fine or good, but if you get a cheap headless, sometimes the hardware on it is just not good enough.
Yeah, I would agree.
So unstandard, you're going to have impossible time finding something to replace it with.
Maybe just had that experience of playing something that was cheap and not enjoying it, and they therefore think that's what they're all like. And now there's so many more people making headless hardware that most of it, I would hope, is getting up to a better standard. I mean, the things you're talking about, the keys are ones that you're not liking, for some people that maybe wouldn't be an issue. There's a lot of people that just pick up a guitar and play and don't even realise you need to make them.
Am I right in saying that up until maybe 2 years ago, cheap headless guitars didn't exist?
They had, but I think there was less brands doing that, because if you type in headless guitar, you'll probably find a £200 one on Amazon.
They're everywhere now.
And because people aren't willing to take that risk for a high value ticket item, that they'll probably go for the cheaper one to try it out, and then they go, oh, this is so bad, how can you make it good? Yeah. And it leaves a bit of a bad taste in the mouth of at least myself, in that I prefer headless guitars for various reasons, and that's not because I'm biased and I make them, but that's what drew me to them, was because they're different and I like that uniqueness of them, and I know I can make them better than most. So that's why I've gone down the route of sticking with my guns and saying headless is the way forward for at least my brand.
One of my most popular videos is, so my videos on YouTube are mainly how to do things and very specific, so like to do with setups and certain elements of maintaining your guitar, so people go back to them or search them when they need them. it's not necessarily I've got an audience that follow and they like each video because it might not be specific to them. And I made a video about the very cheap, I think it's called Overlord of Music, the cheap Chinese Steinberger rip-off bridge. And it's one of my most popular videos. It still regularly gets watched because there was no one else out there making videos about it. And most people that bought the bridge couldn't work out how to use it. And it isn't that straightforward. So doing certain things like just changing strings or even just moving your saddle slightly involves some hidden little grub screws that you wouldn't notice unless you knew to look for them. They were overcomplicated and not that well made. So a real problem for a lot of people. And I still think that might put people off.
That reminds me, almost off topic. The last guitar I did do was the 2x4 Telly. It was the headless. It was a Geiger bridge, and the saddles they had no hardware to connect them. They were just free floating, and there was a grub screw in the side that just mashed them into each other to keep them in place, which it kind of seemed a little genius and maybe a little Mickey Mouse. I'm not happy with that bridge overall because it's like it's a giant block of shit sitting on this guitar. But there were some features to it that I thought were really cool.
Is it that one?
It looks similar. Yeah, that might be. It might be.
I think I know the one you mean. It's a grub screw angled into the walls of the bridge, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it forces itself. I've looked at a couple of those, and I've had a couple of those to kind of hold in my hand, and I quickly went, well, I like the idea of an intonation screw that moves the saddle forwards and backwards. I think because otherwise your grub screw is going to leave marks, and this is the sort of consideration that I have when choosing hardware. It's like, well, if you've got a grub screw that's wedging itself between two plates of metal, that's going to damage the finish. And over 10 years, if you penetrated that finish down to the raw material, what's that going to do? And you can't tell everyone to look after it as if it's a museum piece. They're going to put it next to the window and radiator and let the rain come through. How is it going to last? But it all comes down to price point, doesn't it? And accessibility. Headless stuff is slowly becoming more popular. The hardware is becoming more of a range. What I have noticed, which I'm very envious of Aristides and Kiesel Guitars, because they've actually got licensed hardware from select companies that are unique to only them, and it's hardware that I really want to get access to. For example, Kiesel do all sorts of bridges, whether it's fixed, trem, and multi-scale for a trem. Multi-scale trem stuff is really difficult to kind of get access to, but Kiesel have a license with Hipshot for that specifically, and same with Aristides. They've got exclusive rights to a multi-scale Evertune, and also trem and certain bridges by a company called Handtug, which are based in Germany. Tug of your hand, Handtug.
Beautiful.
Yeah, but they've got these exclusive licenses with these companies, so they've got their USP just in the hardware. So trying to stand out and use the non-licensed stuff is again an interesting thing. But I like what Aristides is doing with not using wood. I guess you could say the fretboard's wood, but it's Richlite, which is compressed paper and recycled resins. So I like what they're doing. It's pretty cool. But yeah, it annoys me when I contact Hipshot directly and I'm like, I've seen this on these Kiesels. Can I have one? And they go, no.
Yeah.
Well, I understand that, but it seems like you've got your unique thing as well by having things basically made by people specifically for you. I know it's not a patented design like that, but that's something that makes it extra cool, I think, knowing that you are getting hardware on yours that is unique.
I think the difference is if someone came to me and said, where did you get your string holder or headlock, whatever you want to call it? I would say, I get it made privately. What is your guitar design? I can help you design it and have my toolmaker friend manufacture it. I don't like gatekeeping in that sort of way. You know, I'm happy to chat with other guitar makers and show, like, don't do this because of XYZ. This is what I've done before and it kind of works. This is how I set up a CNC or anything like that. But you know, I draw the line if you're asking me for the dimensions of everything of my guitar. But and that goes with the hardware. It's like I'm transparent as far as I can be, and while still protecting my my core detail.
I think we need to get some hardware manufacturers on this show now, have a chat with them about the process. Because I would imagine if you're a hardware manufacturer and a big company comes to you and says, we need this, but we want it exclusive to us, you're probably not going to say no to an opportunity like that. But it does have a different ethos to the ethos I imagine you have, which I've, since having a 3D printer, have discovered, which is loads of people that make designs for free for people. Just put it out there. And they make it so that not only is it free for you to use, they're really up for you remixing it or editing it in some way as well.
So that's the whole discussion of open source. And as much as I have mixed opinions of Elon Musk, but he didn't patent the battery technology because he said it actually just hinders and slows everyone down in terms of that product evolution, and no one benefits from it. Same with the 3-point belt harness from Volvo. They didn't patent it because they were like, well, this is a safety concern. We want everyone to live if they're involved in an accident. So yes, people protect their ideas, but there's nothing stopping someone doing their own version of it as long as if it's patented, which is, I guess, very difficult to do these days. But yes, open source, if people want to take on a design and improve it, I think there needs to be that reciprocating conversation of being like, look, I've actually improved this product. What do you think? And it's kind of like a tip of the hat to say, like, acknowledgement and sort of going back to the original designer and saying, what do you think? I think that's but if you go back to Hipshot and say, hey, I've actually made my own and it's better, do you want to know the secret sauce? They'd be like, yeah, here's your lawsuit.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how many of you have had out there a guitar you put up online, an image of it, or even more specifically, as happened to me recently, an advert selling one of my guitars, and the comments underneath where people said, that's so brilliant, I'm going to make that design. And, you know, people are just going to go and make them. And my comment always is, oh, if you make it, can you share it with me? It'd be great to see what you're doing, or have some sort of acknowledgement that that's where it's come from. But I don't mind. It's just always a bit of a shock when people are going to go and make their own version.
I've had similar experiences, and I've kind of just come to the conclusion of good luck. Yeah. I've taken years to get to this point, and yeah, you can see the final result, but you don't necessarily know the recipe. And you get two people following a recipe, and one's edible and one's not. And because of the processes and technology that I'm using, doesn't necessarily mean that everyone has that available to them. And if they could make one of my guitars by hand, then hats off to them, but they're going to spend a lot longer making that guitar, and it's not repeatable. So there's pros and cons to how I do things. But yeah, if someone said, oh, I love it, I'm going to make my own, I'd be like, yeah, okay, good luck, fine. You're clearly not my market. So
yeah, I mean, it's a compliment. I had so it's every guitar has a story, who is a member of this channel, got in contact with me because they'd made a YouTube video at a guitar show, which had gone down really well on their channel, of a guitar that was a copy of one of mine. And to be fair to them, they name-checked me in the video about how the sort of idea had come about. But this person's copy, I could clearly see in the YouTube video, just didn't have all of the sort of attention to detail I would put in it. And it's sort of it's great that it was referenced that it came from my guitar, but at the same time, I don't want people to see that and think that's how I make them, because I know I can make them better than that. But yeah, that's what you're saying.
Yeah, it's we had a company I do some freelance stuff for, and they had a Chinese company copy their idea, and I basically said, well, is it a better product? And he went, no, because they actually bought one. And I said, well, you've got to then look at it as a compliment, because they've gone out of their way and researched the market and find the best product to try and bring their own version. And they've copied yours, but yours is the real McCoy, and it's still better. So of course there's going to be a price difference, but if people are going for that subpar result at a more, I would say cheap, not more cost effective, but a cheaper price, they were never your market in the first place.
Yeah.
And you can then say there are many like it, but there's only one real one.
It's clearly different for a guitar, but at some point there's products, and there may be guitar related products like this, where the price point hits that the fakes affect you. So like I remember at Christmas hearing on the radio a company, one of many, who sell products at Christmas. They sell extra ones of these products, who were getting terrible reviews, which has really had a knock-on effect to their sale of their gifts, because Chinese companies ripping them off and making really inferior stuff, but using the same sort of marketing as them, even a very similar name, so that people think they're buying into the original brand that came up with this concept, but in fact they're buying some like really badly produced crap rip-off, and therefore the other company getting affected, which is not the same as when we're talking about earlier on the cheap headless bridges being rubbish, but they are a knockoff of Steinberger, and if people have played on one of those, they may think, well, that's what a Steinberger bridge is like. And I remember a Steinberger coming in to be repaired in my workshop, and it was exactly the same look as that cheap one I'd made the video on, but it just works so much better. Like everything about it was easier to turn, easier to move, presumably long-term much better stability. But you'd be it'd be easy to be mistaken that it could be the same quality.
I think there's a side of it where the customer hasn't really done their research, and they've looked at the price point and think maybe they are getting the real thing at a bargain. And Menno has just said eventually they go belly up. It's not a sustainable business model, because you are making a bad product, and eventually they'll just move on to the next thing because they can. I guess the people who suffer at the end are the customers themselves, because they spent money on a product that they're never going to use. And the guitars are different, because Paul's done a video on buying a secondhand guitars, or that Glary Strat for 60 quid, and the recipe for a Strat is very simple, and there's but then again, how many, like the Chibson versus Gibson, you don't buy a Chibson because you think it's a great guitar. You buy it to vicariously believe that you own a Gibson, and you aspire to owning a Gibson. And I don't think it's to do with wanting to promote Chinese manufacturing. I think it's just because times are tough, and often you're not going to buy a Gibson for your first guitar. It's a difficult one, and I guess it is very different for instruments in general, or at least electric guitars. But
with the chip thing, I'm sure there's just a lot of people who want to buy their first guitar, look for the price range, probably may not even know who Gibson are, just see that is a price that I can afford, and that's the guitar I'm going to buy.
I'd say, well, maybe it goes back to the argument again. It goes back to the argument again. Does you're getting a Chibson because you can't afford the real Les Paul that Slash played, and if it comes down to who are you wanting to play guitars like, who's your inspiration, and you go, £1,500 and above for an Epiphone at least, it's just too much. Oh, okay, so you type in copies or Chinese, or you just generally look through the Google ads, and then you're like, oh, AliExpress. And so Paul's much better informed about the Gibson versus Gibson battle. But yeah, I mean, I never went for a Gibson or alternative like a Chinese one. But my first guitar that I really sort of cut my teeth with was the Westfield Les Paul. And to be honest, that played better out of the box than my Les Paul did. And I had to do so much work to my Gibson Les Paul to make it work that it was annoying. Now that I've done so much work into it, I'll never sell it. But it's the last guitar I ever bought.
It's interesting. It can be hit and miss buying even expensive guitars, I think. Look, we haven't got a lot longer left, and I realise we haven't talked about we talked about it off air, I think, about how you and Paul met. And I think that's quite interesting. Maybe you could let us know.
Over dinner and candlelight, wasn't it?
Yeah, I messaged Paul on Plenty of Fish, and we met. Grindr. No, it was so very early on. I say early on, when I wanted to go as Yarde Guitars officially. I wanted to kind of chat with local luthiers, and there are luth groups and Facebook pages, but I found it's mostly just for people trying to repair a bad job, or they've got a Fender Strat, and it's like, no, I don't really want to talk to people who are repairing guitars. I want to talk to people who are manufacturing and designing and adding something to this whole process. And Paul came up as a suggestion on Instagram, so I followed him and realized that he's actually quite close locality wise. And then I gave him a message, and I think that the conversation when we first met was like, oh well, I've got something I need, and that was really access to a workshop, and Paul had something he needed, and that was help with CAD and CNC. And it was kind of like this gentleman's agreement of, well, let's help each other. I annoy him a lot, impromptu sort of message him and say, are you in the workshop tomorrow? I need to plane up some wood. So there's definitely
I still can't.
I need to. Yeah, but we have skimmed it, and we're getting there in terms of that learning hurdle. It's difficult because if you don't know the CAD inside out, it's difficult to kind of translate that for a CNC. It's a long journey, and I think Paul's learning, but it's one of those where he's got a CNC that doesn't quite have like a certain Z clearance, so we've kind of had to play with that, and we had loads of error messages, and so yeah, we're coming over hurdles. But Paul's taught me a lot actually with YouTube and how to be a bit more charismatic, and I think actually that's more what I've taken away from Paul. But he's got the gift of the gab because he's fitting kitchens and drinking everyone's tea on site. But James
is trying to avoid using the term teaching an old dog new tricks.
Yeah, but when I met Paul, it just reminded me of working in manufacturing workshops as opposed to the institutions like universities, which was quite refreshing, especially being him being so Plymouvian.
Yeah.
Right.
Story.
When I met this little serial killer, because he comes across as a bit dextery, right? He came to the workshop, and as soon as he started talking, I knew we were talking cheese, which I find fascinating because I'm more interested in people than most other things. So, and I had a feeling that he was the sort of guy that if someone gave him his dinner and it didn't have 5 pieces of basil on, it was going to get thrown across the room. It's not quite so as he wants it. But James's guitars, on a serious note, and I don't do serious very often, his guitars are phenomenal. Like I was gobsmacked. I knew nothing about headless guitars. I was really coming in pretty stupid. And when he gave me a guitar to take home, I said in the start of my video when I made one, the bastardization, when I took his home, I thoroughly expected to hate it, and I was completely blown away. It's a marvel of an instrument. He makes phenomenal quality gear, and his brain is really, really irritating, but it's better than mine. It works better. Do you know what I mean? So I'm really
expecting to hate it because it was headless.
Oh, they're fucking ugly, aren't they? They're so ugly. I don't like the look of a headless guitar. No one really likes them. It's all lies. It's smoke and mirrors. But ergonomically, phenomenal bits of kit. And as soon as I sat on, I play guitar. I sat on the sofa of an evening. Now, I've got Waza Air headphones, which is the ultimate tip for anyone who wants to practice at home. They're phenomenal. And my wife watches crap on telly with like Love Island and people arguing and like tension and horribleness. And so I sit with my headphones on and I just practice. So I have to sit on the edge of the sofa to play my jazzy, which was always my number one guitar. And after 20 minutes, my back was playing up because I'm old and getting past it. So I wanted to be able to sit back on the sofa and put my feet up on my recliner, which I've earned after all these years of hard work, and enjoy it. And as soon as I got his headless guitar, I was like, wow, I can sit there for ages. So I had to make one. The only difference I made with mine, wasn't it, is I put the input jack on the front. Because I want to be able to sit there. I wanted an impact jack on the front like an SG, so I've got no electrics down the side of me. And yeah, I'm converted. I would make a few more. They're not very popular on my channel. People always moan, but people just go to a channel because that's what they watch in it, and they just want to see some guy.
I'm just gonna do this. I've got my Mr. Glyn's pickup top on. He'll be listening back to this, and as he does whenever I say input jack, he'll message me and say it's output. It's the output jack.
Yeah.
I get regular reminders from him because I always say that. I'm learning.
Well, I'm going to call it input jack forever now just because of that.
So, while we're chatting, Paul, were you saying before then, last time you were on the show, you were talking about the transition from doing the kitchen stuff to doing guitars and hoping to do the guitars as the main job. Has that reached that point now then?
Yeah, it's happened really quickly. I'm surprised.
Congratulations.
Yeah. You get I probably get maybe 20 inquiries a month for custom builds. 80% of them, as soon as you tell them the price structure, they disappear into the bush and you never hear from them again, which is fine. People send me. I've got some weird and wonderful things coming up. I keep taking on the jobs that could make me fall flat on my face, but I think that's part of the appeal of the channel. Of trying new things that other people want to try at home. So just get stuck in. There's no embarrassment. So I've got to make sure I dot a few guitars that go swimmingly with no hiccups, so I don't get the reputation of being the dickhead that messes everything up he touches, like the Frank Spencer of the guitar world. But yeah, it's really good actually. The cheap guitar review stuff is just to bring people to the channel. Yeah, it's just business, isn't it? At the end of the day, it's just if I can get those videos are doing like 90,000 views in 5 days every time I put one up. It's ridiculous. So, and the guitars sell on, so they don't cost me anything to make. They basically take a day out of my diary a week to film it, work on it, and edit it. So it's easy. It does attract a lot of people that aren't typical to the channel, so I get lots of abuse and horrible comments and emails and all the rest of it. But those people can all do one. That's fine. I don't mind that. Like I say in my videos, my skin's thicker than my kids. So
I'd love to see how well. I mean, it may not be a thing that works for your channel, but how well a video where you look at all of those abusive emails goes down.
Oh, mate, they're coming out. I'm storing them.
All right, good.
I've got notes everywhere of people sending me shite, and I know. Luckily, if anyone wonders how YouTube works, if someone leaves a comment, if you leave a comment that takes the mick out of me, that's fine. I don't mind that. If it's constructive criticism, quite often I end up Googling what people say and I learn a little bit. That's fine. Every day's a school day. If you write me one or two, and the thing that gets me the most is if you start arguments with other people in the comment sections.
Yeah, right.
Then I'll use the hide user from channel button, which is amazing because people don't know they've been hidden. So they're commenting away, shouting into an empty vacuum, "You're an asshole," but they have no idea that we can't see it or hear it. It's brilliant.
does it still let them? I hope it does still let them write their comment then, and they just don't
Yeah,
know.
it does. Yeah,
Oh,
it does.
brilliant.
I've researched it, and I'm like, wow, that's amazing. That made me like it even more. I have had a few accusations of if you write anything political or anything that could be construed as violent or abusive in the comment section, YouTube more often than not will hide it, and I have to approve it. So I get 5 or 6 of them a day because I swear on the channel, so people swear in the comments. Sometimes it'll pick it up. Quite often, if you're particularly bad, YouTube won't even give it to me to approve. They will just bin your comments completely. And then people accuse me of hiding comments that I don't approve of. And I'm like, quite often, I don't even see what they've written because they've been a little bit too harsh, which is weird for my channel. But a lot of people expect YouTube to be this sterile, surgical environment where no one uses bad language. And YouTube, I think, are letting their hair down a little bit. And, you know, these silly little videos I'm doing of cheap guitars are bringing in 1,000 subscribers a day. It's absolutely insane. So, and I'm only doing it to grow the channel for the custom build stuff. I quite enjoy buying cheap guitars. It's quite funny. I quite meeting people around Plymouth that I'm buying these guitars from because some of them are fucking weird. I just as an example, years ago I used to build PCs for people, for my kids' mates and all that. So I'd be always on a parts hunt to buy PC parts. So I bought a graphics card off a young lad who lives around the corner from James. Actually, I did say it's weird around there, and it was £100 back in the day. And I said, "That's fine, mate." And he said, "I said, is cash all right?" And he said, "Do you mind bringing coins?" This is when they changed the money in the UK. I don't. I'm a practicing Buddhist, and I don't approve of the animal products in paper money. Right? That's an amazing story. So I was in Barclays Bank in Salt Ash, which is inbreed country anyway. And I was telling him why I had to get this £100 cash, and I turned up at his house, and I had to literally get him out of bed, and he was just a 19-year-old stoner in Salt Ash. He wasn't a Buddhist monk. He went to Salt Ash College. I had to step over his bong to get to the graphics card, bless him. But that's the sort of people you meet on these little trips, isn't it?
I love it. Love it.
I didn't. I was furious.
So just quickly before we go, James, you just mentioned you're learning from Paul about YouTube. I haven't even mentioned your YouTube channel yet, but what sort of things do we see on your channel?
It's a lot less swearing. There's a lot less comments and viewership, but I'm nowhere near as charismatic as Paul. But what I do is kind of show stages of my guitars as I go along and give more of an in-depth view of how I do it, basically. So there's a lot of CNC stuff. The full build's actually doing okay. Yeah, so it's kind of just like in-depth looks at how I do things and kind of reinforcing my process. And also if someone says, "Oh, your guitars are too expensive, you know, Anderton's does a £400 guitar, you need to make your guitars cheaper," you know who you are. I then reinforce the fact, well, my guitars aren't made in China by a child. They're made by me. I do it from design to finish, and there's an experience to that. It's a journey, and I do videos, I record it all. It's difficult, and I really admire Paul being able to churn out all these videos and guitars within, you know, once a week. I thought I was going to be able to do that, and it annihilated me. And and Paul, like he said, like I'm jealous, if I'm honest, how he's getting quite a lot of views, and but that's what I'm aiming for. And if I can sneak into his workshop and gain some secrets, then and one actually is where Paul's presenting into his videos, he's got a little sign that says energy, and I think that goes a long way. But yeah, the YouTube for me is really like a vlog of how I do things. I need to do a bit more to piece the cameras and everything like that, but yeah, So it's basically like someone saying there. It's part of like a package. So if someone's buying one of my guitars, I've definitely documented it in videos or reels or some form of content, and that's what I want to also pass to the customer. And yeah, so it's just documenting that and having a platform to share it.
Fantastic. Well, look, I've put links to your YouTube, your Instagram, your website in the description, again for Paul and for me and Scott as well. There's also some links to some of the other Guitar Builders Collective stuff. So I appreciate we might have some new viewers on today. So just so you know, Guitar Builders Collective, we do this weekly live stream on my channel, but also there is a Facebook page, which is essentially a place where people share their builds. So you get to get a bit of advice from each other, a bit of feedback. If you're stuck on something, put a question in there. There's also a forum, but that's not used as much as the Facebook. And on Instagram, essentially, it's just a place where images are shared of people that are part of the collective. And to be part of the collective, you just got to interact with us, really. As soon as people start interacting, things start getting shared. So Instagram is a great place to go, really, and just see lots of other people building and a range of different building. So hopefully a range of different inspiration. Yeah, so next week on the live stream, we're doing our second one where we're focusing on 3D printing. So we had one at the end of last year. It's a 3D printing of guitars specifically, whereas next week we're going to focus on the things that James was talking about earlier, really, the 3D printing of all the jigs and sort of tools and things that go around guitar building that might be useful for you in some way. It's something that we've talked about a lot on and off throughout the show, so it'd be good to have a focus in on that. And hopefully, James, will get you back for our third episode of that at some point later in the year when we talk about CAD, because that's something that I know it's come up in the chat today. People maybe finding CAD a bit intimidating. It's not something I've really experimented with yet. I'm looking to get into that, so I'm hoping that show will be a bit of inspiration for me. And actually, while we're on 3D printing, every Wednesday I do a live stream at 9 p.m. UK time. And today I'm putting together a 3D printed guitar from Ray from Tasmaniak Guitars, who's one of our regular hosts on here. Ray designed this guitar for me that I printed a few weeks ago. And while I was building it, I noticed a few things about the way it was assembled. It's the first one I've assembled that reminded me of the mold making that I used to do when I was so I studied as an artist. I used to work for artists who made bronze casting. So there's a few upgrades on this build that I'm really intrigued to see how it fits together. So if anyone's around to join me in the live stream, that would be great. And just before we say goodbye, if that's not a clue that I'm winding up here, I just want to quickly say thank you to the members of the channel, because the membership is quite cheap, but it helps me, with all the live streaming costs, putting out the podcast. And I try to give a little bit back. So every Monday at the moment, I'm giving a tour of my workshop live. And actually, I think, James, I just saw you put up a post. Are you going to be doing a tour of your workshop in a video soon?
Yeah, all 3 seconds of it. It's quite a small workshop, but it's really to kind of show off the equipment that I have and how I utilize it for what I do in such a small space. And I got good comments on people want to know, how do you make a small space usable? So I want to kind of focus on that.
Cool. I mean, one reason I'm doing these sort of weekly tours of my workshop is I'm obsessed with looking at other people's tools, other people's workshop. It's great to look at. So just quick thank you then to Every Guitar Has a Story, Big Unit Guitars, Daniel Marquez, Dinsey, Gabriella Retti, Entropia Guitars, Electric Lady Guitars, Adair Guitars, BB Guitars, Simon Chapman, Mr. Glyn's Pickups, Dave Dickens, and Tasmaniak Guitars for your support. Really appreciate that. So, who knows? Hopefully we'll have James back soon, Paul back soon. Scott, are you with us next week when we're doing 3D stuff?
I don't know. Is it normal time?
No, so you won't be. So next week we're doing it at 9 a.m. It's on Thursday. It'll be live on YouTube, 9 a.m. UK time, which is 3 a.m. your time, Scott. So I think you probably won't be there.
I'm just passing out at that time.
Yeah.
I won't be up either.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks everyone. And
cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you very much.
The Guitar Builders Collective is a group of like-minded people from all around the world at different stages of their guitar building journey. You can join us over on our forum to seek advice or share tips on guitar building processes, materials and tools, or just to share your builds. On YouTube, we have a regular podcast of guitar building chat where you can join the live stream or watch back on past episodes. Our Instagram page shares posts of members' builds and links you direct to their accounts. And for those of you on Facebook, we've got a private group that you can join, share and chat along with. The Guitar Builders Collective is a welcome and open space for all, so do pop by and say hi.
There we go. We can say whatever we want now.
Well, I'm saying that, but we seem to still be live. So I'm just going to click end stream. End now without outro. So